Welcome to another episode of Experience Any Wines Live. This week, we're going to be talking about boundaries and how beautiful they are. We are giving the gift of peace of mind this holiday season because boundaries establish where you are and allows you to then see the world from a new lens where you have removed yourself from your situation. And so before we do that, as always, we're going to start with one of my boundaries. We're going to start talking about gratitude. And this year, as I reflect back on where I started the year, and where I'm finishing the year as we're getting into this holiday season, I'm really grateful for all the contributors that we've had over the last year, for the people that have shared my content, the people that have commented. In life, there are three types of people. There are going to be consumers, which is 90% of people, contributors, which is 9% of people, and creators are 1% of people. So I'm excited for all those people that have contributed along the way. Whether you've shared a post, give me some perspective, commented on a post, or even reached out to me directly, Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn Messenger, because of something resonated with you. And with these comments, all of the comments, whether they're perceived as positive or negative, encouraging or discouraging, it's insignificant. Every time someone takes the time to express their perspective of the world, everybody wins a little bit because we transfer knowledge. As the old adage goes, when one person teaches, two people learn. So for all those people that have commented, have contributed, have reached out to me directly, have met me in the real world and talked to me about what resonates with them, thank you for all those efforts. My ask this week is very simple. My ask is you continue to push yourself to find the peace within you, find the pieces of you that make you, and encourage you to continue to challenge me. That's my ask. For the people this last year that have seen a piece of content, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I wanted to make a comment, or I wanted to share this with somebody and then I've never got to or forgot to, or people are like, oh, you said something 6 months ago or 3 months ago, and then they see me in real life. My ask is simple. Do the fucking thing now. When you have that moment of greatness, write it down. Even today's show, often I think about what I'm going to talk about right as we walk in. And over this last week, I started thinking about what this show would be. And I started writing down my notes. And I actually have my notes today because I captured that lightning in a bottle. So we have this opportunity to share this moment together. So that's my ask of you. Stop allowing those filters, the negative self-talk, the limiting self-beliefs, whatever those things are in your world, whatever insecurities you have, wipe them away. When it comes to my relationship with you, the audience member, there are no boundaries. Please reach out to me. Share your ideals with the world, and together we can create magic. So that's my ask of you this week. No podcasts. Don't buy my book. Don't do all those things. Be you. Let you shine like the beacon of light that you are. All right. Now let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. Today it's all about boundaries. Boundaries are a beautiful thing. The stories in this whole show today is inspired one of my good friends. And one of my good friends, we went to a Packer game with them last night. Go Pack Go. 34-0 against the Saints. First shutout of the season by any football team. So yeah, it was good. It was a good game to be at. Anyhow, as I'm driving to her house, she texts me, her and her husband, and they're texting me and they're like, hey, don't drive up the driveway because they have dogs. And I've been to their house before. And when you drive up the driveway and the dogs aren't settled and ready, the dogs go bananas and then the house is a mess and then fine. So she's like, hey, don't drive up the driveway until we tell you to. All right, sounds good. So I'm running ahead of schedule-ish. So then I stopped at the Quick Trip to get me some snacky snacks, right? So her setting that boundary, right? Don't drive up my driveway. All right, cool. And then we meet them at the halfway point of the driveway. We pick them up. We load up the stuff. And then we head to where we're going to go pick up the shuttle on our way up to the game. And she goes, oh, my God, thank you so much for just meeting at the driveway. I go, why wouldn't I? She goes, some people drive up. Some people don't text me when they're on their way. Some people, ask me 50 questions. I go, this is very simple. You made the target as small as possible, which was text me, let me know your ETA, and then wait at the end of my driveway and tell you to pull up. I'm like, I can do those two things. And actually, you telling me to wait ahead of time allowed me, because I was running ahead of time-ish, allowed me to go stop at the Quick Trip and get snacks. So this is a win. And I got thinking about, why are people that way? And last week I had the same conversation with the same friend about the same football game. And she was talking about how I understand nuance. And I never thought about that, how that important piece of critical information within the sentence, paragraph, story, narrative, whatever, nuance. What's the simple thing? And she said, Andy, you do a great job understanding nuance, because one of her other friends questioned, hey, why are you going to the Packers game on Monday? You don't like football. And she's like, what do you mean I don't like football? She's like, oh yeah, like on Sundays, you don't sit around and watch football like you're doing yard work. And she's like, how did you get, I don't like football because I do yard work? And then, and when I heard this, I go, no, you like football. You pay attention to the Packers. I also know that on a Sunday, when there's other things to do, you're not going to spend 4 hours in front of your TV watching TV because TV's not your thing. She goes, see, Andy, why is this so difficult? I go, I don't know. Because I've been to concerts with her. I've been to comedy shows with her husband. Like, we've hung out and done things. She likes to go out and do live events. And so that's that nuance piece where someone took a simple boundary. Hey, I'm not going to sit and watch football this weekend to, oh, you must not like football. So the boundary was very small, which is, I'm not going to spend 4 hours on a Sunday sitting inside watching TV. That's ultimately the boundary. And then people all of a sudden add these layers that are insignificant. Why they do that is insane to me, right? When the target was very small. And she set the boundary. Now, the beautiful thing about boundaries is they give clear and concise communication between you and the other party without making it about you and the other party. One of the challenges we have in today's society is people want to put their expectations on other people, want to tell other people how they live. Certainly, we experienced that with all the COVID craziness of 2-3 years where everyone thought everyone else should act the way that they wanted to act. And now, in reality, there's 350 million Americans with 350 million different ideals of how to live your life. And people, instead of setting boundaries for others, they set expectations of others. And there's a huge difference. Boundaries are about you. Expectations are what you have of other people. So I have a family member in my family who does not like to talk about politics. They like to talk about politics as long as they talk about their politics and they want nothing to do with your politics. And so this caused a lot of rift within our family where they would say something, I would comment, and now I'm the asshole, right? And then they would say, oh, we don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't want to hear. Now let me project my ideals onto you, and yet I don't want to hear feedback. And so this happened again on Thanksgiving where politics was projected out in the world, right? And this is a great opportunity to have a boundary. Instead of projecting what you want in the world, project what you're going to do. That old adage, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. So, for example, as we come into the holiday seasons, we spend time with people maybe we haven't seen all year. This is a great opportunity for you to set a boundary instead of an expectation. A boundary can simply state, hey, I'm not going to engage in political conversation, religious conversation, football conversation. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to engage in this type of conversation when it comes up. Because it's inevitable, there's going to be some types of conversations that come up in this world. Because the world is a contact sport. You cannot just take your safe space with you everywhere. You can choose to move about the world the way you do it. And so you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to engage in this type of conversation, whatever the conversation is. And then when that conversation happens near you, you have the opportunity to express that boundary. Hey, thanks for your perspective. For my own health and sanity and safety and whatever your reasons are, and need not to explain, right? I am in choosing not to engage, right? It's a choice, right? It's not I can't, I won't, I don't. No, I'm choosing a little bit of dopamine. I am making a conscious choice here not to engage in this conversation. And you do that magical thing I talk about sometimes called shut the fuck up. No need to explain or justify why you're choosing not to or why you're choosing to do something. Say, I'm choosing not to have this conversation. And when the other person engages, you can say, hey, I'm still choosing not to have this conversation. And when you want to talk about this, I'm going to exit this conversation. And you exit the room. Now, there's other conversations because now the conflict's not between you and the person. The conflict is between you and the person and what they want to talk about, what you want to talk about. Now, what you want to talk about is the conflict. You can still love and respect and accept that other person and choose not to engage in a conversation with that other person. What you do when you set boundaries is you remove yourself from the problem. Because the problem is the problem. You're not the problem. They're not the problem. The problem is the problem. In a case like this, the problem is we have different political views, right? And that's a problem. And we're not in a position to hear each other's side. Okay, again, that's the problem. Now, when we express that problem, we express the boundary, now you no longer own the problem. The conflict is no longer between you and the other person. And the beautiful thing I realized when I've expressed my boundaries, what ends up happening is people end up arguing with themselves because their ideals, their projections is a reflection of them. And it's got nothing to do with you. They walked in looking for a fight. They looked in wanting to be heard. They looked in wanting to have influence over others. That's got nothing to do with you. And when you set your boundaries, it's very clear and obvious what other people's ideals and intentions are. And then you can decide how you navigate those waters. The beautiful thing of boundaries is the more you express them, the more bold they are, the more people know about them, the more people will choose to self-select into your world or self-select out. I recently bought a Tesla Cybertruck. I love my Tesla Cybertruck. Let the world know. I also recognize that a lot of people think it's ugly. It's obnoxious. They don't like Elon Musk politics. Sounds good. I love my Tesla Cybertruck. I love it so much. I waited 2 years to buy one. I drove all the way down to Illinois to buy one. And then I went out and spent more money to wrap it with my company colors and our branding. And I love it. It's A plus in safety efficiency. It's A plus safety rating. It fits forward comfortably. I've taken it up and back to Lambeau with my family, down to Chicago and back with my family. I got a truck bed to put deer in, which I've done. I've done all the things you can do with a Cybertruck, and I absolutely love it. And there are people that hate it. And there are people that don't like me because I own a Cybertruck. I even have a family member. My mom told me when I first got it, it was the ugliest vehicle she'd ever seen, and she would never get in it. And then when we went to the Packer game and she spent time driving in it with me, she's actually, it's a really nice vehicle. It's safe, it's quiet, it's warm. So it turns out, it's okay, she had this boundary of it being ugly. And my joke now is, yeah, the Cybertruck's ugly. That's your biggest complaint? Once you're inside, guess what? You don't get to see it. That's the beautiful thing. Here's the other beautiful thing that's happened. Almost every day, at some point in my wrapped Cybertruck, somebody stops me. Whether it's at an intersection, I get a little attaboy. This morning, I was driving into the gym. And it's dead out. It's morning of Christmas Eve. And this guy, never met him before in my life. He's got his window halfway down, ripping a dart, smoking a cigarette, what do you want to call it, at a four-way intersection. He gives me the old, what's up? And I was pulling away and I stopped. I could see he put his hand out the window and looked back at me. So I stopped. After I turned through the intersection, stopped, backed up. He backed up. And we had a 2-minute conversation. He's, oh, what's your company all about? I told him about my company. Where y'all at? Oh man, that Cybertruck that's dope. He's, I love it. That's so cool. He goes, I want to come work for you. I want to be part of what you're part of. He goes, where's your shop at? And he looked like he was going his way to work on a Tuesday morning, right? Now, here's me in a company that has struggled with recruiting for years, in an economy where people say, oh, there's not enough good employees. And yet, my obnoxious, wrapped, Elon Musk loving Cybertruck attracted the right person. This young gentleman said what's up to me, took time out of his day to share something with me because I let my boundary be known. You get a pretty good idea with my tattoos and my Cybertruck, how I vote, what I value, who I associate with. And the right people come. It's no different than birds. When a bird is under attack, it doesn't die slowly. It squawks and it gawks and it lets everybody know what's going on because people are either going to come down and help and save that bird or they're going to get out the way because they don't also want to get attacked. We live in a society now where people want to be victims. They don't want to stand up for themselves. When you establish your boundaries, this soft, weird thing, you're actually standing up for yourself. You're letting the world know who you are and what you stand for. Here's the other thing about boundaries is once you establish a boundary, you have a step-off point. The beautiful thing, the nice thing, or what the ideal boundary is very clear and specific. So that way you get to decide every time something comes to you, right, whether or not you're going to engage. So for example, you say, I don't want to talk to people that have different opinions than mine. So, okay, that's pretty broad and you're just never going to have a conversation with someone that differs from you versus saying, hey, I'm not going to engage in politics with this particular person in these circumstances. Okay, now you have a very specific boundary and now you can make the decision when that situation occurs, right? Whether or not you actually stick with your boundary or you adjust. Now, there are times to adjust your boundaries. As I did my research this morning, there are some times when you, as long as you have a starting point, it's like Mike Tyson said, a plan is great until you get punched in the face. So you can have a plan, you can make an adjustment. So this week is a prime example. Under circumstances that can be explained why you're making an adjustment. This week is a prime example. On Fridays, I work from home. That is what I do on Fridays. I know it's best for me. It's best for my company. It's best for the mental health of me, right? I work from home on Fridays. That's my boundary. Yesterday, my business partner and his wife had a baby. And yesterday, when he was going home to, hey, we're about to have a baby, I said, take the rest of the week off. I got it. So now this week, I'm going to work Thursday. I'm going to be around and I'm going to be in the office on Friday because he's having a baby. And my boundary of I'm not going to come into work is pretty insignificant when we're bringing a new life into this world. And I also value, right, my greater boundary is family comes first. So my family comes before my business. his family comes before this business. He has an opportunity to spend the holidays here with his brand new baby and his wife and his two other daughters at home. And that boundary is much more important than whether or not Andy works from home or comes into work on Fridays. So now you can have these two boundaries that have competing interests, and ultimately you choose one or the other. And now the following week, we're already looking at our calendars. When my daughter's in town, you're damn right I'm going to take a few days to work from home so I can spend time with my daughter, because I'm going to still understand the premise and the principle behind the boundary, which is I'm taking time out of my life in the middle of the day, the good part of the day, to invest in my family, to invest in myself, because I had that first boundary. And this is what it looks like when it all comes together. When you establish a boundary, when it's well known, when the right people respect your boundary, we get a situation like I faced in September. In September, I went down to Key West with my Vistage CEO roundtable. I've been going on spousal retreats with them for the last 4 years. 2 years ago, I stopped drinking. So for the first 2 years of knowing my Vistage people and going to retreats, I drank, I partied, I had a good time with everybody. And the last 2 years, I have not drank. So last year, when we were in Charleston, it was a bit of adjustment, like, oh, Andy's not drinking. Okay, no big deal. We respect it. We got this. This year, when we were in Key West, was a big nothing burger. Everyone knows Andy doesn't drink. Everyone knows that I have some dietary restrictions. So when we went out to restaurants, when we went to bars, everyone in that 20 of us were conscious of my boundary. I made it very well known. I did not ask for any special accommodations, and yet they made accommodations because they wanted to show their love and respect and acceptance of me for me. Now, the first night we went to a bar that had a shitty cover band. I mean, it was shitty. It was obnoxious, loud, whatever, like 3-piece cover band. And I was having a blast. They were playing 90s jams. And they were playing some Aerosmith and AC/DC. It was just all Journey, all songs we were singing to. And at one point, they started playing a Green Day song. And we're sitting there, we're by the sidebar. I go behind the sidebar, I grab the soda gun, and I start screaming into the soda gun the lyrics to the verse of a Green Day song. And the bartender's like, you can't be back here. And yet I'm impressed. And I put the soda gun down. And I'm having a time of my life at this time. And all my Vistage people are hooting and hollering and cheering me on because they know I can get there without alcohol. And one of the guys at the bar, he goes, man, what do you want? And why aren't you sharing? I go, oh, no, I'm sober. He's like, what? And he was hungover from the night before. He goes, what do you mean you're sober? I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I'm sober. I do this without alcohol because that's my goal, is to get to become that person without inhibitions, without alcohol, because I've practiced it. And he goes, no way you're like that. I'm like, oh, yeah. No, that's how I live. And that night where everybody else went out, I was the first one to turn in. I got to a point, I had my fun. I told my jokes. I sang behind the bar. They continued going out. They had a good time. I was like, you know what? I want to get to bed early. I want to work out. And I want to call the night. So I went to bed early. No one gave me shit. The next night we were out watching the Packer game. There's a theme here. Packers, go, Pack, go. We're watching the Packers game. And at the end of the Packers game, we took a shot. The whole crew took a shot. And there was 3 of us that do not drink alcohol. And so we took a shot of water. Right? And I was like, oh, no big deal. I'll take a shot of water. Cheers, everybody. I took a shot of water, and I instantly wanted to drink. Something in me triggered. I was like, oh, I want to drink. I want to have a beer. I want to have a shot of vodka, a little 44 North. That's what I wanted in that moment. And I realized, oh, wow. Yesterday, I respected my boundaries enough to say, okay, I'm going home now. And now today, I'm right on that critical moment where it's like, oh, what does it hurt if I have a beer? No big deal. And then I saw some people grabbing an Uber to leave. I go, oh, hold on. I'm at this critical point where I want to have a beer. It was the first time in a long time I actually wanted a beer or a drink. And I go, no, I'm not going to have a beer. I'm going to go hop in that Uber with a couple people, and I'm leaving. And the next morning, no one gave me shit because they know and they respect the fact that I refrain from drinking alcohol. And they also know that I don't look down on them. They do them. The first night when they went all hard afterwards, oh, they went hard. That night when they all did a shot and they went to the next bar, I took my happy ass back to the hotel because I have a clearly defined boundary. I have people that respect my boundary, and then I live the life that I choose to live, a life of health, a life that I prioritize my physical health, my mental health, my sleeping, my emotional health, because I choose not to drink, and those around me respect. That's the gift of a boundary. That's the gift of peace of mind. You get to decide those boundaries. You get to be let them well known, and then you get to live them out. Think about those 3 steps. Sounds a lot like doing the fucking thing, telling the fucking world, and then showing the fuck up. When you figure out who you are, when you establish your boundaries, when you do those 3 steps to life, it'll become very clear and obvious who is with you and who is not with you. You can love and accept everybody for who they are. And in return, they'll love and accept you for who you are because you are very clear on who you are and what you stand for. 'Tis the season to give yourself that gift. Be you. Set those boundaries. Let the world know who you are and show the fuck up as the magical human being you are this week and every week. We'll see you next week.